What do you do on Sundays?
We talk about Cate Blanchett, the acting, the costumes, the awards, but mostly the Blanchett of it all.
Oh, I'm not acting.
You think this is a love affair?
I saw you, Erica. Meeting in the middle.
This is Sundays with Cate, and I'm your host, Murtada Elfadl. Welcome to Sundays with Cate, the podcast series about the films of Cate Blanchett. Today we are talking once again about Blue Jasmine in our mini-series about Cate's best performance. It's definitely the most loaded performance. My guest today is our first returning guest to the Sundays with Cate podcast, Jose Solís. Hello, Jose.
Thank you for having me, Kate.
Thank you for coming back. It's so exciting to have a returning guest. You were a great guest on our Talented Mr. Ripley podcast, and that's why you're our first returning guest.
Wow.
You and I actually saw Blue Jasmine together for the first time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, because then we got really drunk at martinis.
After, yeah, we had to celebrate with a Stoli martini with a twist of lemon.
We had like 4 though. We have like no self-control.
We had a few, that's for sure. What we're going to talk about today is Blue Jasmine, but we're also going to talk about the Woody Allen women. Blue Jasmine belongs into this tradition of Woody Allen women. Lots of other movies, from Annie Hall to Bullets Over Broadway to Another Woman to Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona. But before we get into all that, tell me what you think about Blue Jasmine.
Oh wow, I mean, we saw it together that time and like we sounded like, I don't even know, like teenagers who had just lost their virginity. We were so excited, like it was like the second coming in a way. Because I feel that up to then, I mean, most of the 2000s had been very hit and miss for Woody. And, you know, although I love Woody Allen's work as a director and a writer, but most of his movies from the 21st century are pretty, you know, lame. They're pretty, like, they feel like lazy. Like, they feel like, you know, like he was about to quit. Like, he was done. And then he had this, like, comeback with Midnight in Paris and then with Blue Jasmine that, I don't know, it made me feel, I think, like probably all those people in the 70s when they got to see, like, Annie Hall and Manhattan. Because it was, like, the Woody Renaissance. And I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole, you know, because we're going to talk about that at some point, obviously.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
So like what I'm saying right now, I'm just talking about his work, and I'm not thinking right now as a rational person about, you know, his personal life and the scandals that have surrounded him also.
I mean, what we can say about that is that we can agree that Woody Allen, there are a lot of signs that he is a terrible person and that he may have hurt a lot of women. And we are here to talk about his movies. His movies, no matter what you think of him, and I think I don't think greatly of him, but I think his movies are very influential. And if you look at sort of his oeuvre from the 70s, and from the 80s, which are some of the movies we're going to talk about today, they're very influential. And so many other filmmakers that we now know and love would not have given us what they've given us if they didn't see Woody Allen movies when they were growing up.
He also had that eye for, you know, like for getting Meryl in Manhattan, for instance, and for getting all this, like, actors to do, like, this tiny bits that in many ways become, I would say, like, as important in their, you know, in their filmography. It's like, you know, like, I think Meryl in Manhattan is better than Meryl in Sophie's Choice. But this is not a Meryl podcast, so I'm sorry. I'm going to stop right now.
You can talk about Meryl. We love her. But let's start with Cate and Blue Jasmine. So yes, this Blue Jasmine is such a performance-driven movie. And I remember, you know, when I first saw it for the first time, like my jaw was on the floor the whole time. I couldn't believe this actor that I have loved for so many years. And I knew that she is great. I could not believe how amazing she was in this movie and getting to give this very emotional performance, but also at the same time, a performance that is so dominant. I mean, Cate is always dominant in movies. She is a very dominant actor, but this...
On top.
She is. But in this one, she just takes the reins of the movie and runs with it. And it's frankly a joy to behold. And, you know, I go back and forth what is my favorite performance of hers. But whenever I watch this movie, there is just no other answer.
When Blue Jasmine premiered, you had already seen her as Blanche, right?
I have seen her as Blanche on stage, yes.
I don't think I've ever asked you how seeing her do Blanche on stage, and obviously because Jasmine is like a version of Blanche, I don't think I've ever asked you how the two compared.
The difference is, what I loved about the Liv Ullmann production is that because of Marlon Brando's force of performance, Streetcar is sort of remembered as a Stanley play. And what Liv and Cate did in that production is they made it a Blanche play again. So she is the dominant character in that play. Not that the performance is as dominant as it was in Blue Jasmine. She is more vulnerable and broken as Blanche, because that's what Blanche is, while she's more brittle as Jasmine. Yes, Jasmine is going through a crisis, but at the same time, she is somebody who has a lot of pride. She's somebody who has sharp edges. She's somebody who is definitely not likable or sympathetic. And I think, to me, that was the main difference between what she did as Blanche and what she did as Jasmine.
That's so interesting because, for all, like, the technical wonders of this performance in Blue Jasmine, I think that Cate's probably, like, most vulnerable performance. Because even like, in movies like Little Fish, which is, like, very raw emotionally, she's always, like, very contained. I feel like she's always in control. And in Jasmine, I think it's the one time where I've seen her the most look like she was about to, like, lose control, and like she was about to, like, not know what to do.
When you watched Jasmine the first time, when was the first time you felt that this is a great performance? This is something I'm gonna like.
Tip big boys. No, I mean, that's like halfway through the movie. I think from the moment she opens her mouth, and it's this, like, very, like, affected accent, like kind of like Katharine Hepburn meets, I don't know, Michael Bloomberg meets, like, all this, like, New York socialites. And from the moment she opens her mouth, like, it was like, I noticed something that you've always told me when you're talking about the impeccable Cate, and it's like her voice is, like, so interesting. And in Jasmine, I don't know, like, the moment she opened her mouth, I was like, holy fuck. I was like, I'm sold.
Yeah, I mean, it's she's an actor who uses her voice so well all the time, and here it's rich with emotion, but it's broken, and then also the accent is perfect. It's a specific Upper East Side New York accent that you don't hear everywhere in New York City, but you definitely hear it in the hallways and apartments and opera houses that Jasmine frequents, and she gets it so right, as usual. Of course she does. She's Cate Blanchett. I knew it from the beginning, because she's introduced blabbering on that plane, and she's just talking. And I'm like, if this movie is gonna continue being like that, because that scene, there is another actor in the scene, but they're completely, like, you don't remember anything about them except that Cate is talking to them, and I'm like, if this is going to continue being like this, I'm going to love this movie, because it's going to be an all Cate movie. And it is an all Cate movie.
Poor Ginger.
Yeah. So this sort of leads me to ask you about, one of my questions is about the other actors in this movie. Cate, we will talk more about her, but she's such a hurricane in this film. A good hurricane, a hurricane of emotion that sweeps us. But do you feel that the other actors were swept by her, or did you like some of the other performances?
I like everyone in this movie, and I think that one of the things that they do so well, and it's something that happens very often in Woody Allen movies, and it's that when the actors know that there's, that this woman can command the wind too, they move and they let her command the wind. But they don't, like, vanish. Like, they give, like, very, very, very good performances. Like, I mean, I think that Sally Hawkins as Ginger, who's the Stella to Cate's Blanche, does a very good job. She's so adorable in this, like, very, like, naive way. Like, I almost wanted to slap her. She's so, I don't know, full of love and kindness. And then we see her dark edge. And I think that every character in this movie has that. Because who's the guy who plays Ginger's ex-husband? I always forget his name.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah. That scene where he becomes, like, the catalyst. Like, he's the one who destroys, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's karma, right? Because, like, Jasmine's husband, Harge. No, I don't know what. I don't know what Alec Baldwin's name was. I don't remember anymore.
We can just call him Alec Baldwin.
I'll call him Harge. Harge does something terrible to his sister-in-law and to her husband, and Andrew Dice Clay in that one moment near the end of the movie is just incredible. And Bobby Cannavale, I feel, was trying to play, Stanley.
He was, for sure, yes.
And, well, he got his wish because he's going to play him in the summer Ultra.
When your sister had all that money, she wanted nothing to do with you. Now that she's broke, all of a sudden she's moving in.
She's not just broke. She's all screwed up.
You'll be very happy to know that I lost every cent of my own money.
Her husband was a slick operator. I was there a week. I knew the guy was hitting on a girlfriend.
I can't. You choose losers because that's what you think you deserve, and that's why you'll never have a better life.
I really like Sally. I think Sally does stand away from the hurricane of Cate in a lot of scenes. She gives an actually submissive work because she's trying to stand away from her, but at the same time, when you look at her, at Sally looking at Cate, that's where the two performances gel for me, because she is both amazed and horrified and in awe and hates her sister and loves her, and all of that sort of registers in her face. I'm not sort of a fan of her scenes with Louis C.K. or all of those scenes that are sort of like they try to make, I'm just like, get me back to Cate, get me back to Jasmine. But I like their scenes together.
I think the weak link here would be Peter Sarsgaard. Because I don't know, I mean, he's a fantastic actor, but I never understood what someone like Jasmine would see in him. He's so boring.
Yeah, I think she just saw his checkbook and
like
his
security,
house.
Right?
Yeah, security, yeah.
So I was like, he is so boring. He's like Mayor Pete before Mayor Pete became like a thing in the media.
I think, Woody is famous for not giving his actors the full script.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's well known in that he only gave Cate and Sally the full script. So maybe Peter Sarsgaard just got his slides and didn't know what was happening. Because if you just get those scenes, you don't get any of the tragedy of Jasmine or anything that's happening in the movie. Because his scenes are only with her, and it's sort of this love story / web of lies that she puts around him. And I agree with you, his performance does not pop, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's just like very boring. What's the name of the kid who plays Alec Baldwin's son?
Well, the older one is Solo, which is Alden Ehrenreich.
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when we saw the movie, like 7 years ago? That's insane. Time flies.
Time does fly, yeah.
And like I mentioned to you how much Alden looked like Ronan Farrow. Remember?
Yes.
He looks like Ronan Farrow in that final scene. And I love about Jasmine, and I don't remember seeing many writers and many critics talk about it, but Jasmine is, to me at least, like in the modern Allen era, the character that most becomes like the Woody Allen surrogate. Because as he's getting older and as he's getting, I guess, more bitter.
Lonelier.
Yeah. He has that, like melancholy, and that it's not resentment, it's more like a regret, I would say. And just from the opening scene in the plane where she's just like blabbering, that's like, like classic Woody. There's a classic Woody character.
Yes.
But by the end, there's always like all of the recent Woody Allen movies have this element of like sadness and loss and regret. And in that scene when Cate goes to see her, he was her stepson, right?
He was her stepson.
Yeah, and she goes to talk to him, and he just freaking looks like Ronan Farrow so much. I found that scene so moving, and I wonder what Cate, because obviously Cate didn't talk about, because people interrogated her about, the Woody scandal, remember? And she didn't talk about that, because she doesn't know.
Yeah.
But I wonder what playing that scene was like for her, and if she saw that, it's a parent trying to make amends with
the son who doesn't want them anymore. Yeah.
Who they wronged.
Yeah, who they definitely wronged and hurt deeply. I like that. I like your interpretation of that. I wanted to ask you also, I love so many things about Cate as Jasmine. I love all the silences in the performance, like when she's about to lie, there's always a sort of a little bit of like, she's as if she's gathering the lie, trying to make it, which is sort of like a classic thing of liars. They always pause before they lie. And so I love that about it. That's one of the things I really love about the performance. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the gestures or tics that you love about Cate as Jasmine?
Cate Blanchett is one of the most glamorous and one of the most photographed women in the world. And she, you say it all the time, she poses like it's nobody's business, right? Like she invented posing. And in Jasmine, she looks ugly. And she lets herself look ugly. And, not ugly in a shallow, like, oh, she's not pretty, right? But she allows the character's monstrosity to come through in her face. And, the tip big boys scene.
Yeah.
You were telling me that she was praising Joker at the Golden Globes,
yes. Right? Yeah.
That scene was better Joker than any Joaquin Phoenix, without the makeup. I remember, like, her face looks like it's melting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, like, her eyes, she almost looks like a Picasso painting in that scene. Like, I don't know how her eyes are where her cheeks, are supposed to be. And, like, her mouth, I don't know, it's magical. So I love what she does with her face, because I think it's the most expressive in an almost over-the-top way that she's ever done.
Yeah, and it is a collaboration with the makeup artist and the costume designer. I think more than it's always a collaboration with those departments for Cate in her performances, because she relies a lot on costumes and makeup and hair to create these characters, like in Manifesto, when she did Cinderella. She always does these heightened characters, but I think this time she uses that collaboration with the makeup artist and the costume designer to chart the emotional pathos of this woman. In that scene you're talking about, you see her face melting, and that is her as an actor, but also the makeup designer adding the sweat, the hair designer making her hair look stringy. And it's not in just that scene, it's in all the scenes especially when she starts breaking down, or in the scenes where she is drunk. You're always aware of like how drunk she is by the way she looks, or how high she is on Xanax or whatever it is she's taking.
And the look on the boys' faces when she's telling them this.
Yeah. One of the scenes I really like is at the beginning in the flashbacks, where they're just telling us about her life in New York before Hal was discovered. That's Alec Baldwin. Before he was discovered. And that's where we talked a little bit about how she was lying to Peter Sarsgaard later in the film. But in those scenes, she's lying to herself. And that's where you see her just sort of being serene. Outwardly, she's serene, but you can see in her eyes the fear and the lies, because she knew what her husband was up to and that he was up to no good and stealing money. She knew all of that. And in those scenes, you see it in her face that she knows. And those scenes are with her friends and, so-called friends. And you can tell that she knows, and she's lying to herself more than anybody else. And I love, the scenes are not like very memorable. They're not one of the scenes that have a lot of the memorable catchphrases, but they are scenes that just build the character, and that's why I love her work there.
There are also like scenes where the movie talks about class, which like American cinema doesn't like doing at all, right? Because like there's no class in America. Everyone's wealthy here.
Yeah.
and I love that like in a way it kind of like it acts like as a prequel almost to the horrors of the current administration, and how all this like beautifully dressed high society women are backing up their asshole criminal husbands and just shutting up about it. Like I wonder how many Blue Jasmines there are in Washington right now in D.C.
I mean, Jasmine is famously based on Ruth Madoff, who was one of the biggest liars to themselves of that era.
Complicit.
Yes. And there are a lot of complicit women and men in stories like this. One of the things that I also love is that the performance and the movie charts the effects of an economic crisis on a person. So this is a woman who is rich and had everything at her disposal. And you can see when she gets to San Francisco, she has like the few things that she kept, the Hermes bag and the dress that she really loves and the shoes that she loves, and she keeps repeating them. And so, again, with the costume designer, they worked on that, and that's something that I love to sort of notice. And the other thing is just in the performance itself. She is always not, to your point about class, she's always not in the scene with people because she doesn't like them. I don't think she likes anyone. And it's very hard for an actor, because actors, and you know, I asked Cate once at a Q&A for Carol about why she was so perfect in that movie, and her answer to me was that it was in the gaze at Rooney, and that's why they were able to act off of each other, because they were looking into each other's eyes. But here she looks at nobody's eyes. Jasmine is always in her head. And so I wish now I could ask Cate, how did she manage to be so formidable when she never looks into any of the other actors' eyes?
You know what's so interesting, that just like listening to you say that right now, I realized for the first time that the movie literally starts with her in the skies and it ends with her sitting on a bench at a park. Like, it's just, you know, the entire movie is that plane crash. I love Woody.
I love Blue Jasmine. I think it's an amazing, fantastic movie. But also a large part of that is because of this fantastic performance.
Also, Alec Baldwin's tall.
Yes. Hal and Harge.
Are there any other like Harrys?
She always has husbands. I don't know. I can't, off the top of my head right now, remember her husband's name.
Know all of this.
You know, we watched this movie together. I remember we saw it several times. We saw this movie opening night at the Angelica, which was a lot of fun. We went after, had Stoli martinis, and then a week later, we went back. Remember that?
Yes, we went. Because we hadn't stopped drinking since we had binge drinking for a week, and we were like, okay, we're coming down from the booze. Let's go watch the movie again. Can you imagine if we had been drinking for a week?
The thing that made us return a week later, the next Friday after it opened, is because this movie is so watchable. It is about a woman in crisis. It's not a happy ending. Jasmine is not sympathetic. It's not somebody you want to spend time with, because if this was someone in real life, you would want to look away, just like that woman sitting next to her at the bench at the end of the movie, because there is nothing you can do to help her. So you want to look away. But yet, somehow, this movie is very watchable. You know, when it's on Netflix now. I have watched it several times. I sometimes just put it on because I just want to see the performance. Why do you think it's so watchable?
It's obviously because of Cate, but also the script is one of Woody's finest ever. You know, he does this thing where he wears all his references on his sleeve, right? Like, you know, he can't hide them. And everyone knows this is Streetcar. He doesn't try to hide it. He doesn't pretend that he's reinventing Streetcar. But because he adores the structure so much, he allows himself the liberty to play and give this characters dialogues. I mean, tip big boys. Like, we started quoting that movie, like, within, like, the 5 minutes after we had left the Angelica.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most quotable movies of the decade, probably, and definitely one of the most quotable movies in Woody's career.
Yeah.
You know, everything from her drink order to the
Stoli martini with a twist of lemon.
what's the thing with the dentist? He's trying. I forgot. Like, it's one of those like cute Woody things. Like, we're just trying to let's make love.
Oh yeah, yes. There is some retro language.
That's so crazy. I remember, isn't she reading a book about computers or something like that?
Well, yes, one of the plots is that she is trying to learn computers, which is one of the most unbelievable things ever. Obviously, I love when she says, "I saw you, Erica." That scene is a masterclass, because that scene is the thing that we're talking about earlier, right? It's Cate being in a scene with another actor and not looking at them at all, because she is in this whole dimension where she's remembering this story about this woman, Erica. And it's also a great scene for Sally, because we get to know the extent of how crazy or off Jasmine is by the horrified look on Sally Hawkins' face. And when she says, I saw you, Erica. But it's also very funny. It's tragic and horrifying, but very funny. And I have said, I saw you, Erica, to people.
Do they know what you're talking about?
I think if they know me, they know.
I'm always like, when people are always talking about Sally Hawkins and the fish monster from The Shape of Water, I'm like, she already faced the worst monster of them all with Cate.
Jasmine French.
Yeah.
Another thing that I don't say this in real life, but another sort of line that I really love, and this is a meme or a GIF that I use a lot, which is, what does this stupidity even mean? Which is always works like, you know, especially when somebody's saying some stupid political thing, and then you can just send them Cate saying to Hal, what does this stupidity even mean?
Say it, girl. Say it to everyone. They deserve it.
Besides the big boys, do you have any favorites?
With the quotes? Oh, God, I don't know. Because, like, I think Tip Big Boys is, like, the one this week. But probably if you ask me next week, I would choose something else.
I always wanted to do something with my life. You know, I had energy. I didn't just shop and lunch and go to matinees. You know, I ran charities for poor people. Raised money for museums and schools. You know, with wealth comes responsibilities. I wasn't just some mindless consumer like so many of my so-called friends. Though I won't say I dislike buying pretty clothes. Tip big, boys. Tip big because you get good service, and they count on tips. You know, someday, when you come into great wealth, you must remember to be generous.
Another one that I really love, but it's something that, it's such an offhand one, when her friend in San Francisco invites her to the party where she meets Peter Sarsgaard. You know, she says, I haven't shown my face socially in so long. And that's another one that's really, really great.
That's so great. That was me in January.
Well, it's February now. Are you showing your face?
I mean, here I am. Here I am.
Yeah, here I am. So, we love this movie. I personally think it's, if not the best performance of the decade that just ended, it's definitely one of the best performances of the decade that just ended. Where do you stand on that? Is it in your top performances? And what other performances does it remind you of?
I mean, when you're talking about the best performance of the decade, like, obviously I'm thinking Eddie Redmayne, Matthew McConaughey, and okay, no, fuck that. I don't think I hadn't thought about that, you know, about the best performances of the decade, but certainly Cate would be up there. It is a monumental performance, and it was the kind of thing that she just swallows that movie whole. And, you know, I'm not a fan at all of her Elizabeth the Golden Age acting, but also, like, you know, it's not a very good movie. But it's kind of like the same performance in a way, like, she swallows everything, you know, she eats everything like this, like, giant Pac-Man kind of creature. But it works so well here. And it's because, you know, she could have also just tried to emulate Vivien Leigh in Streetcar, right? Or she could have tried to play, you know, she could have tried borrowing elements from performances that have borrowed elements from Blanche Dubois. But she does something completely her own and completely original, and even people who don't like the movie, you know, it's undeniable how powerful she is. So I don't know, probably rounding up, you know, somewhere in my top 5 would also be Cate and Carol, and I'm not just pandering to you right now. Oh my God, Marion in 2 Days, 1 Night.
Yep, that's a fantastic performance from Cotillard. Absolutely, I agree with that one. I think Marion in Rust and Bone is also amazing.
And Emmanuel Riva in Amour. There we go.
Yes.
Top 5.
I also think of Natalie Portman in Black Swan.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's another great one. I mean, if we look at the Oscar-winning performances, it's definitely Cate, without a doubt.
Who else won?
Well, Natalie won, and
You're right, J-Lo.
Yeah, and Jennifer Lawrence and Julianne Moore. There's been some good winners, if not for the performances. I definitely love most of the actresses who won this decade. And of course, Cate gave a great speech when she won.
I'm so very proud that Blue Jasmine stayed in the cinemas for as long as it did, and to the audiences who went to see it. And perhaps those of us in the industry who are still foolishly clinging to the idea that female films with women at the center are niche experiences. They are not. Audiences want to see them, and in fact, they earn money. So the world is round, people.
You are listening to one of 3 episodes about Blue Jasmine on Sundays with Cate. 3 episodes, 3 guests, 3 perspectives. In part 1, we discuss Cate Blanchett as the real auteur of Blue Jasmine and the many ways her performance makes her the author of the film. In part 2, we talk about the similarities to Tennessee Williams as Streetcar Named Desire, the character of Blanche Dubois, clearly the blueprint for Jasmine, the many actresses who played Blanche or were inspired by her, from the women in Pedro Almodovar's movies to Jenna Rollins in Woman Under the Influence to most recently Carey Mulligan in Wildlife. These episodes are now available wherever you listen to podcasts or on sundayswithcate.com. If you're enjoying the podcast, please rate and review. Now back to Sundays with Cate. So let's talk a little bit about the tradition of this performance. So Woody Allen has, or had, a reputation for being a woman's director, which really, when you look at his output, sometimes it's really surprising to me that that was his reputation for a long time, because in his early movies, he was so much part of his movies, like his movie, he was in them as an actor, and he was in them as an actor as himself. And then when he grew older, and he had other people basically play him, and the movies were mostly about that character, the Woody or the Woody stand-in. I think his reputation became to that because of Annie Hall. Mm-hmm. Annie Hall is an amazing film. Beautiful performance by Diane Keaton. It was a character inspired by Keaton herself. And it's such a beautifully drawn performance from her, but it's also so funny. And the way she looked and she dressed, it was iconic and memorable. And people still talk about Annie Hall as one of the best comedies ever. And I think we have to thank Annie Hall for that reputation of Allen's.
Completely. And also, I don't know if Dan Keaton should thank her or like loathe her, because like also, you know, she became Annie Hall, like, mm-hmm. you know, even in Something's Gonna Give, like other performances, like she's basically a variation of Annie Hall.
Yeah. And
Cate, fortunately, you know, doesn't have that. Like she, oh, now it sounds like I'm pandering to you, so I'll stop.
No, it's fine.
No, but Cate doesn't have that. She doesn't have, you know, that like shtick. Wow, I mean, God bless Annie Hall, and it's a perfect performance. But yeah, you know, like even Diane Keaton in the world moves like that and sounds like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, that's the sort of the collaboration, right? So when we talk sometimes, like one in the previous episode of this, we talked about the actor as the auteur, and we talked about how Cate is the auteur of Blue Jasmine as much as Woody Allen is. And I think Diane Keaton is as much as the auteur of Annie Hall as Woody Allen is. Because yes, he wrote it, yes, he directed it, but her performance is what you talk about. And it was a performance. She was his girlfriend at the time. It was a character that was inspired by her and her family and the situations in it, where situations that I assume were inspired by her life, sort of what Pedro Almodovar calls autofiction. So definitely Diane Keaton is the auteur of Annie Hall.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Well, bye.
You play very well.
Oh, yeah? So do you. Oh, God, what a dumb thing to say, right? I mean, you say it, you play well, and then right away I have to say you play well. Oh, God, Annie. Well, la-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
And there's something that I find so interesting also, that especially in recent years, besides Jasmine, which is like dark Woody, but he also gave Emma Stone the opportunity to play the Woody surrogate in that Magic in the Moonlight movie, and also in Irrational Man, which I think is so underrated and so good. Did we see that together also?
We did see that together, yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I like both Emma and Joaquin in it.
Yeah, and Emma, it's not Joaquin who plays Woody, but Emma. And I find that, I don't know, like there's something fascinating about how he's putting himself in women.
Tell me why you think Emma is the Woody stand-in Irrational Man.
Because she's the one who's like, you know, the very neurotic one, the clumsy one, the one who has all these conspiracy theories about Joaquin.
Yeah.
And also she manages to make herself very like dorky and very like dim-witted. And Emma Stone is, you know, one of those actors who always shows her intelligence. She's so smart. And those eyes always show, you know, her intelligence. And in this movie, she's just like a Reddit kind of creature, you know, like just like conspiracy theories and like fear. So I think that people went into Rational Men thinking that it was going to be Joaquin. But I was like, holy fuck, it's Emma Stone who's playing Woody. And she's so good at playing Woody also. Doesn't she wear the glasses and everything?
She does. Now that you mention it, I can see it. And I definitely now want to see Irrational Man again, which is not something that I thought I would want to. You know, Woody Allen has written all these characters for women, but he has also written some misogynist characters. If you look at the Mariel Hemingway character in Manhattan is a great movie. It's an inspiration. It's a movie that I think was an inspiration to a lot of filmmakers. It was an inspiration to me as somebody who was, you know, growing up. I saw it when I was very young, and it sort of represented to me like New York and life. It just represented to me like, you know, the life that I have now here in New York. And this is so Woody is not only inspirational to because he chronicled New York, which is the cultural capital of the world in his movie. He's not only was influential to filmmakers, but just to people who wanted to have sort of a cultural life in the city. But it also, that movie, like when you see it today, that character of that 17-year-old girl who is taken advantage of by this older man, it just doesn't sit right. So he was always a creep, is what I'm trying to say.
Always was. And always will be.
And I guess in the 70s and 80s, people forgave his creepiness, but no more, and that's good. But let's talk about some other actresses who, I mean, Diane Wiest, you think of her, one of the most brilliant comic actresses. I think of her in Hannah and Her Sisters, but I also think of her as Helen St. Clair in Bullets Over Broadway, which is so funny. I mean, that don't speak scene where she just completely obliterates John Cusack off the screen, and you can't help but fall in love. And she has that deeper voice in that movie, which you've never heard Diane Wiest like. It's such a beautiful performance.
It's so crazy.
But I want to express...
Don't speak. Don't.
Just a few things that I want to tell you. When we first met...
No, don't speak. Please don't speak. Please don't speak. No, go. Go, gentle Scorpio, go. Your Pisces wishes you every happy return.
Just one...
Don't speak!
I think that she, in many ways, you know, is in that Jasmine tradition of like theatrical characters in Woody movies, which is why it makes me kind of sad that I don't think, has Woody Allen ever had a show on Broadway?
Well, Bullets Over Broadway was on Broadway.
But I mean, you know, like an original Woody script.
I don't think so,
I don't think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, he did a lot of stand-up at the beginning of his career, but I don't think he's ever had a proper show on Broadway.
I thought that Kate Winslet in Wonder Wheel was extraordinary. But because she was, you know, drowned by the woodiness of the movie and by the woodiness of the media and by Ronan Farrow and by all those things, which I'm not saying are wrong. But even, like, I think that we should be talking more about Kate Winslet in Wonder Wheel, because it was one of those performances that... Did the Golden Globes even nominate her? Not even they nominated her, right?
No, yeah.
And they nominate everyone.
Yeah. I think that movie just came out at the time when the world was just done with Woody. And also it came out in the shadow of Blue Jasmine. And Blue Jasmine was such a phenomenal success, box office, awards-wise. Kate was really loaded. Everybody loved that performance. And there are a lot of similarities between Blue Jasmine and Wonder Wheel. There are two movies about a woman in crisis by the same director, by actresses whose first name is Kate. So there is a lot of similarities between them. And I think Winslet suffered because she was just in the shadow of Blanchett. Even if the world was ready for one more Woody, maybe it just wasn't meant to happen.
Poor Kate.
But somebody who got a lot of accolades is Penelope Cruz in Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona. which is another of similar to Helen St. Clair in that she is not the center of the movie, but she is the one you leave the movie thinking about.
She's like a freaking black hole.
She is. Like, do you even remember Rebecca Hall or...
ScarJo.
ScarJo.
Like, ScarJo was in this?
Yes, truly. I mean, ScarJo was in that scene where Penelope Cruz talks about what a genius she is, which is the comic highlight of the movie. But nobody remembers any of the other actors, even Javier Bardem, who was sort of like the Woody stand-in in that story.
Yeah, no one. That was just a Penelope movie.
It's brilliant, and she, I think, brings something that the other Woody women haven't brought, which is sexiness. Penelope Cruz cannot help but be sexy, but this is where you sort of go back to that, who is the auteur of this? Is it the writer, director, or is it the actor? Because I haven't seen a woman as sexy as Penelope Cruz in any other Woody Allen movie, or a performance as sexy as Penelope Cruz in any other Woody Allen movie.
What about Maureen Stapleton in Interiors? No, yeah, I'm just kidding.
Ask him. He stole everything from me. His whole style.
She likes to make up these stories.
Juan Antonio, your whole way of seeing is mine.
I'm not saying that you were not influential.
Influential.
Yes.
Influential.
Yes, influential, but to say that I stole your style...
Hypocrita.
To say that I stole your style is too delusional. She always had problems with reality, and I'm not going to get angry.
Okay, what did they say in art school? They said I was a genius, right?
I always encourage your talent.
Not talent. I'm not talking about talent. I said genius. Genius.
But you know, since we're talking about the Woody women, it's really hard for me to talk about Jasmine and to think about Jasmine and not think of Jasmine French as a spiritual sibling in many ways to Cecilia from the Purple Rose of Cairo. Because they're both movies about women surviving an economic depression, women who lose everything and who are living in a country where everyone has lost everything. And they're both women who give into fantasy.
Yes,
Completely,
absolutely, yeah.
And even the last scene in Cairo is Mia Farrow sitting in the movie theater, and Woody shoots her almost in the same way that he shoots Jasmine. You know, they're just women staring onto the screen of like eternity in a way. And obviously there's a little bit more, he's a little bit kinder, I think. He's not unkind to Jasmine though, but he's a little bit kinder. There's more hope in Cairo. Although they are both, those last shots in Jasmine and Cairo are so heartbreaking because these women have lost their minds.
What are you doing here? Tom, what's the matter with you? You're acting so peculiar.
Tom, no, I'm not Tom. I'm Gil Shepard. I play Tom.
What?
How do you know Tom?
Oh my God, I don't believe it. You're Gil I've seen you in lots of movies.
Where's Tom?
Oh, Broadway Bachelors, right? Right?
Yeah. Well, you know.
Honeymoon in Haiti?
Done about 6.
You were Scream.
Thank you. Where's Tom?
Why?
Well, he's my character. I created him.
Didn't the man who wrote the movie do that?
Yes, technically. But I made him live. I fleshed him out.
You did a wonderful job. He's adorable.
I'm glad you brought the Purple Rose of Cairo, because that is a movie that's also, you know, it's Interiors is Bergman, and I think that was his Fellini movie. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it is Mia Farrow who was his muse for and made so many movies with him. That's definitely the movie that showcases her the best, and it is her best performance.
She's luminous in that movie.
But I think if we are talking about Blue Jasmine and sort of like which one in the Woody women is closest to Jasmine, I would say Eve in Interiors. It's another wife who's suffering from the dissolution of her marriage, and she is depressed, she is not functioning socially, and she also faces a tragic ending similar to Jasmine. Jasmine, and sorry if I'm repeating this because I said it in the previous episode, that bench at the end of Blue Jasmine is her coffin. I don't think she ever leaves it.
That's so sad, and she's so pretty.
Yeah. So Geraldine Page in Interiors, and it is a performance that she is not in as much of that movie as I thought. You know, I've seen it a while ago, and I went back to just see scenes from it, and she's not in as much of it as I thought I remembered, but it's such a dominant performance in Interiors that's the one you leave with. Even though the movie goes on to tell the story of her daughters, played by Mary Beth Herriott and Diane Keaton.
And Maureen Stapleton's kind of like Ginger, right?
Yeah, yes. Maureen Stapleton is Ginger.
Crass.
She is the id to her, yes. She's the other one.
Got this Ginger.
Yeah, I love Geraldine Page in Interiors. And Cate, when she started, she has been sort of compared a little bit to Judy Davis because they're both Australian. They have that sort of same temperament of being big actors. And Judy Davis is also wonderful in Husbands and Wives. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a movie where that movie is about Woody and his marriage to Mia. But again, you leave with Judy Davis as their friend who is sort of brittle and dissatisfied and mad at everyone and can't orgasm. And it's such a funny performance. Judy Davis is amazing in Husbands and Wives.
That speech about the foxes.
Yes, that's a good one.
So insane.
I thought it was an experiment. I didn't think it was final. I didn't realize you were having an affair.
Listen, if you're having some kind of personal thing...
Really? I'm okay.
I don't really think I can do this. I'm feeling upset.
What are you upset about? Woman gets to be over a certain age, it becomes a different ballgame.
Oh, no.
Don't defend your sex. It's true.
So for you mentioned Cecilia in the Purple Rose of Cairo, and we talked about Interiors and about Husbands and Wife. What is the performance that you think is most linked to Jasmine in your mind of all these Woody women?
Definitely Cecilia. Like, and if I like keep pushing my theory that Jasmine is in some sort of way, like Woody's attempt to apologize or to try to like understand the fucking mess he created for Mia Farrow and her and his son, I think that it makes total sense that, you know, men are cowards, straight men are cowards, and it would make total sense that he would send a woman, he would send the mother to try to apologize to the son that he wronged. So for me, Jasmine and Cecilia they might even be relatives for all we know, right? Because we don't really know anything about Jasmine.
We do not. Jasmine made up her whole history, yeah. You know, we talked a lot about Woody Allen movies, about how influential he is. He's influential. Like, can you imagine Noah Baumbach, for instance, without Woody? You know, that's one of the reasons why we're talking about. And talking about him is complicated. We're not definitely pro-Woody or, you know, condoning his many alleged crimes. And I think the best... As I was researching this episode, one of the quotes that I really like is one that Emily Nussbaum, who was the TV critic for The New Yorker and is a wonderful writer, and she gave that in an interview to Terry Gross on NPR. And she's somebody who has talked a lot in articles and in this last book of hers about how influential Woody Allen was to her growing up and how she wanted to be a cultural writer because of his work. And I love what she said. She says, "I think Woody Allen is a criminal, but I still think about and might watch his old films." And that is sort of how I feel too.
Amen.
Let's go back to the star of this podcast, Cate Blanchett. We have talked about her a lot. We love Cate. We love her in Blue Jasmine. In 2013, she makes Blue Jasmine. She's loaded. People love it. It was a comeback for her of sorts because she hasn't made a movie in a while. She was doing theater. She is back to being a movie star and she wins an Oscar. She is at the top. She follows that with a collaboration with the director she loves in Todd Haynes with Carol. That not only is a successful movie, I'm not talking about box office, but Carol is a cultural phenomenon. It's a movie that people love so much and talk about all the time. So this is sort of like at the height of her career. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think of her output post Carol?
The House with the Clocks on the Walls, you mean? That masterpiece?
Ocean's 8. You know, things, I just, it's definitely, she hasn't done anything at the heights of those two.
Was Manifesto before Carol?
No, that was after.
Was that? Well, I mean, I like Manifesto, but also, like, how do you top those?
I mean, yes, it's very hard to top those two movies. And I remember this speech that she gave when she was honored for Carol in some festival, and she basically said, you know, Todd Haynes, Phyllis, you, Rooney, you gave me this amazing opportunity. And frankly, I don't know what to do next. And I think she's just still looking.
She can open like a flower shop or like start a cafe or just like run her theater. Because also, because you haven't talked about this on this episode, but also the Blue Jasmine press tour gave us my favorite Cate look of all time, that pink Balenciaga, that all those like silly mortals kept saying made her look like a lampshade.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, sit down and like learn. Like she pulled that out from like the archives.
Yeah.
So
of Balenciaga.
Yeah. I'm like, holy fuck, it was incredible. And then with Carol, she gave us like that Jill moment
in Cannes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, she also did her best looks ever. Like,
I mean, one of the things, as somebody who has loved Cate for so long, about Blue Jasmine and about her just being loaded everywhere from critics, from audiences, from awards bodies, is just getting to watch her receive the accolades that I've been giving her in my heart for 2 decades.
And in your journal. You're like, Mrs. Cate Blanchett.
And she's amazing. She's somebody who, like, you know, when she gives a speech or she appears on TV as herself, she's funny, she's erudite, she's somebody who you like to watch.
Is that when she gave her The World is Round?
Yes, The World is Round, people, is her Oscar speech for Blue Jasmine.
Speech. What was her SAG speech about?
Her SAG speech was...
She was like jacking off the SAG speech.
Yeah, she was, yeah. And she talked about Judy Garland and barbiturates at the Golden Globes because I think she was a little drunk. She said she's been plied with vodka like Judy Garland was plied with barbiturates.
Is that when she wore that black lace dress?
Yes, the Armani.
God, I'm so gay sometimes. Okay.
Yes, I think we're both very gay, and we just told the whole world how gay we are. We remember exactly what Cate was wearing.
We are currently drinking our tea with our pinkies.
Yeah. And just to close this episode, one final question. Have your thoughts about Cate changed throughout the years? Because I think people who maybe don't follow, I like to ask this question because people who don't follow her as closely as I, sort of like, she dips and she leaves. She's not somebody who's always omnipresent in the culture. Like, she takes time off, she does other things. She's not always in every movie, you know.
Is that one of your Julianne Moore digs?
I mean, there is a lot of people who work a lot, but Cate is not one of them. So I just wanted to ask you, has your opinion of her changed throughout the years?
No, I don't think so, except for like the very silly childhood rivalry that I talked about when I first discussed it. That's like, you know, like my dad and I had this like Gwyneth versus Cate thing going on. But no, Cate Blanchett is brilliant. And even, you know, she's one of those artists who is always, oh, you know what she did? She did that Documentary Now thing.
Documentary Now, yeah. Which is a brilliant half hour of comic half hour.
So we have like something great after Carol.
Yes.
Anyway, no, Cate is one of those artists who I will go see everything she's in because she's always so interesting. And she, you know, even when she did that Thor movie, like, it was so much fun. Like, she put so much fun into it. And no, my opinion, you know, if anything, like my awe of her talent has just kept growing. Because I even loved her in the present, which not even you did.
Yeah, I loved her. I just didn't think that show was great.
Yeah, like, yeah, you know, like, just like watching her dance on top of a table.
Yeah.
Like reckless abandon. I was like, holy fuck, she's so like sexy.
She's very sexy in The Present, yes. So if you haven't seen The Present on Broadway or in Australia, I am sorry. It was Cate's sexiest performance.
Gone. So
Jose, I think it's time now for us to go and get our Stoli martinis with a twist of lemon. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
And before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Jose Solís Mayen, and I post everything that I write about. And remember to tip big, boys.
And you can find me on Twitter at ME_says, and find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Sundays with Cate. And until next time, thank you for listening.